This is Sting, and you're listening to the Interactive Interview.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Internet Wrestling Radio. I am Patrick Kelly, being joined by Nick Knoll. And, Nick, we got a lot of stuff to talk about wrestling-related. Yeah, I can talk. Coming out of this weekend.
Yes, we do, and a lot of it is good.
Well, where do you want to get started? We had two pay-per-view events this Sunday that created a lot of headlines. Where do you want to start?
Yeah. Well, of course, then we had a WWE pay-per-view, and we had, ROH have to learn that they've learned nothing.
I guess we'll start with Ring of Honor. I mean, I said a while ago I am never going to buy another Ring of Honor pay-per-view because of their sheer incompetence with handling this internet streaming with the pay-per-views. It is so mind-boggling how bad they are at it. And I remember when they were on Go Find Live, and it was like, oh, it's their fault. Well, they're not there anymore, and you're still screwing it up. Yep. And it's insanity. I will not spend money on your pay-per-views if you continue to have problems like this. I cannot believe they have not fixed this problem. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, well, apparently, for those that missed it, ROH had an internet pay-per-view this weekend. The majority of it was shown without sound, and there was a significant portion where the entire thing was just blacked out, and they said the stream was unavailable. And you would think, this being the third time ROH has had this issue, that they would jump on it right away, apologize extensively. Here was the statement that they issued that night on Twitter. The stream is working. Firefox is the best option for viewing. Now, you know what, ROH? Fuck you for that response. You failed once again to deliver a product you asked people to pay for. And you know what? Don't give us that bullshit that we should be watching on that people should be watching on Firefox. Some people don't want to use that server. Some people use Internet Explorer. Some people use Safari. I think Google has one called Chrome. I think Bing might have just launched one. It shouldn't matter what browser you're using, or if it is going to matter, you got to tell people that before the pay-per-view starts, before they give you money.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And I'll say it right now.
And this is the company, and I hate to go this route, but this is the company that bashes TNA whenever they fuck up. And, their fan base, I mean, they will throw TNA under the bus if they fucked up on pay-per-view. And this has happened time and time again. It is insane. They've got people there that bash the WWE whenever the WWE fucks up. And here we are. They cannot put on a simple pay-per-view.
Well, I'll say this. A bad show is more forgivable than not delivering a show at all. With a bad show, you have the argument of, well, I thought it was a good idea. We thought that it came off well on paper. We didn't think that people were going to dislike it this much. Sometimes you write a show and you think it's the greatest thing in the world. I mean, the Room is proof of that. But when you're unable to actually air the show start to finish, you're an idiot. You know what? I remember a couple of years ago, this is slightly different, but I remember a couple of years ago, there was a thing with WWE TV where by mistake William Regal exposed his genitalia on pay-per-view. That night, WWE issued an apology saying, we're sorry, we didn't intend to do that, but we understand that we made a mistake. To anyone who was offended, we greatly, greatly apologize. TNA, when they had issue last year when Jeff Hardy lost his fucking mind and came out on a pay-per-view, they had to have a 3-second main event, their make good was, you know what? If you bought that pay-per-view, we'll give you a free month of TNA on demand. So they immediately made good. ROH's response was, you should watch it on Firefox. It's like, oh, we're sorry. You can watch the same pay-per-view now on demand. You know what, ROH? Until you can prove that you can stream these shows successfully start to finish, you have no right to ask for people's money to buy them anymore because you repeatedly fail. And I don't want to hear this bullshit of, oh, we're working at it. You know what? Combat Zone does pay-per-views all the time. I never hear this problem. Dragon Gate does these pay-per-views. Evolve, Shine.
Dragon Gate does very well with them, actually.
Yeah, there are several companies out there that do pay-per-views every month. I never hear of a company having this many problems as you're having. And you're supposed to be the number 3 company in this country right now. So, you know what? If maybe you need to hire the people to do Combat Zone's pay-per-views, because apparently they're competent.
Yeah, hey, that's embarrassing. It really is. And you know what? They didn't used to have these problems. I remember I ordered Glory by Honor 9. And that would have been 2 years ago. And that show worked fine. It worked great. So I don't know what happened between then and now, but they just seem like completely incapable of putting up these pay-per-view streams. It's unbelievable.
Well, I'll say this. And they used Go Fight Live for a number of years. Had one issue. They switched to their own internal company, and I think they broadcast 8 pay-per-views on it, 2 of which had problems. Maybe you need to go back to Go Fight, because I assume a company that regularly streams pay-per-views actually has the ability to figure out what their problem was and say, okay, we know not to do that again. I mean, it's basically common sense. If you have a toothache, go to a dentist. Don't try to remove the tooth yourself.
Right, absolutely. And I think to James, did you just sign on?
Yes, I did. Ironically, in a speech about ROH having technical problems with their pay-per-views, Nick was having technical issues with his phone and sounded like he was one of the swamp people underwater.
Yeah, you're coming across a little muffled, Nick.
Right. It sounded like you might have been getting a text because you're getting that like a Morse code thing going on while you were talking, and it kind of made you sound like you were. Hello, everyone.
All right. Well, let me try calling back in. Just hold the line.
Okay, we will.
Cool.
All right, so James, how you doing?
I'm doing good. So ROH had another technical issue on their pay-per-view?
Yeah, it's almost an expected thing now. Every pay-per-view, they can't seem to be able to put on that pay-per-view stream.
You know, people wouldn't believe this, but Michael Manna, a.k.a. alias Stevie Richards, actually knows a lot about how to do that stuff. Mm-hmm. Maybe they ought to hire him and say, hey, could you, do this, and in exchange we'll let you wrestle for us?
That probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, they need to do something, because I'm at a point where I refuse to even consider paying money for their shows.
You know why I refuse to consider paying money for it? And it's not just because it's Ring of Honor. I wasn't going to be a dickhead that bad. I refuse to pay. This is my thing, and I wish I had, because they did a pay-per-view at the beginning of the year, probably, 6 months ago now. Probably wasn't, maybe not that long ago, where it was John Morrison's return to the ring after a WWE release, and it was an IPPV, and I just can't bring myself to pay money to watch something on a computer that I can't find a way to finagle to keep.
All right, hey guys, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing, is if I could use, there's a couple programs you can use to rip YouTube videos now, and there's ones you can use to rip any kind of Flash video. If I knew I could record it live, I probably would order some of these web pay-per-views, but I can't justify to sit at my computer screen like a complete fucking nerd watching a wrestling show. I mean, Christ, what comes on after that, after the iPay-per-view? It just feels a little bit too... I feel like I'd be spending money and getting to watch a show that I don't really care about and not get to actually keep it, so I can't, sell it to somebody else later.
Well, technically, you're not supposed to do that if it airs on regular pay-per-view.
Yes, I know you're not supposed to do that, but what they don't know doesn't hurt you.
Well, now they know you. Well, now they know you just said it on the internet.
I only did that with WEW pay-per-views, really. It would be There was a guy who had a weird foot fetish on Francine, like ridiculously so. Personally, I like the butt. But he would say things like, oh, I got to see it to see what she's wearing on her feet. And it's like, you're a weird bastard. But he wouldn't pay $10 on his cable bill for the pay-per-view because he didn't want his parents to see that he ordered WEW, Women's Exotic Wrestling or Erotic Wrestling, Extreme Wrestling, or whatever the hell the E stood for. But he would give it to me via PayPal. So what I would do is I'd order the pay-per-view. He'd pay me via PayPal. I'd get it for free. I'd record the thing, get to see the insanity, and there you go.
Sounds like a
basically
plan.
For free.
Well, you know what? Ring of Honor needs to start giving away some of these shows for free just to show that they can do it start to finish.
I think anybody that paid for the show should at least get a DVD for free.
Yeah.
A DVD of the show. I don't see how that's unjustifiable. And again, we've talked about this. Whenever WWE screws up or whenever TNA screws up, they try to make up for it. And, you know, the Ring of Honor fan base, they're the people that will throw TNA under the bus whenever they fuck up. And it seems like Ring of Honor fucks up every show.
Right, and it doesn't help that they're, I will say this, I've noticed that some of the bots are even starting to kind of turn on the company because they've done the two things you don't want to do. They've betrayed what the company was supposed to stand for so long, and they've repeatedly failed to make it up when they do have failures like this. I mean, there were a lot of people on like an ROH website. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? They're paying money for Fat Hardy. We might be reaching a very dangerous tipping point for Ring of Honor where this time next year, and I know I've said this before, but at the rate they're going, we could be seeing the end of Ring of Honor.
Yeah. I mean, well, you got to think about it. Like when Ring of Honor was red hot, and they had a buzz surrounding them from the, the internet wrestling community. They basically created all the future stars. CM Punk came out of there. Austin Aries came out of there. AJ Styles originally started there. Christopher Daniels. I mean, the stars of the next decade. Bryan Danielson. There were tons of them that came out of Ring of Honor. Who have they made? Say what?
Finish your point, and then I'll interrupt.
Who have they made beyond? Their guy right now is Kevin Steen, but who have they made legitimately in the last 2 or 3 years that you would say, oh, that guy belongs on mainstream television? The last one I can think of is Tyler Black.
Well, I'll say this. I think Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly have potential, but they are where CM Punk and Austin Aries were many years ago, where they've got the talent, and if they get signed, good for them, but they're not ready to, take the top level, the top spot anytime soon. There's things they got to work, got to refine.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, well, I'm saying it's not so much that the talent isn't there, it's just that they're not presenting them in a way that would make you think that they belong on mainstream television. The talent. Jay Lethal's there.
Right, and I'll say this: they're not going to do it so long as the guy that ultimately has control, call him the head booker, call him the executive producer, call him whatever you want. I call him Cornball. Is trying to recreate the wrestling of his youth, and it doesn't work in 2012. There are certainly elements that might work, but people aren't paying to watch that style of wrestling far and wide. You're going to get the hardcore fans of, oh, this is interesting, but it just doesn't work. It's like trying to do an old Western movie or TV show where the bad guys all wear black hats and the hero drinks milk because he doesn't want to drink beer.
Or doing another ECW reunion show. But
No. They drew less than 300 fans to a show in September. It doesn't fucking work either. And by the way, I have now seen their last show, their most recent show, the show where they grew more one night than TNA and ROH combined in 10 years. Fucking pitiful, horrible workers. They've all lost it. It doesn't fucking work. Don't bring up goddamn ECW.
I agree. It's like I can't believe we're still doing ECW reunion shows after we've already had like just a shit ton. But
Shane Douglas, lose some goddamn weight, then you can start insulting people again.
Oh wow, yeah.
So I'm sorry. You know what? Shane Douglas, instead of doing the I'm Shane Douglas voice, he needs to go, seriously, you guys, seriously, you guys, screw you guys, I'm going home. That's how fucking fat this guy is. If he falls over in the lane, we're gonna have the Bam Bam Bigelow Taz spot from Anarchy Rules.
Ooh.
And I'm sorry, but no, don't tell me that ECW reunions are the solution to the independent wrestling world right now.
Well, that's not what James said. I don't think that's what James said. I think he said. I think he was just making a joke.
No. What I was saying was they don't work. I was piggybacking on your comment of going back to the wrestling of one's youth does not work in the year 2012, and I was saying neither does ECW reunions.
All right, then I'm going to apologize, James, because I snapped on you unfairly.
Okay. It's okay. Calm down.
We're all friends here. We're all friends. But, you know, it's so funny when I look back, and I've been watching a lot of old Raws and a lot of old Nitros lately, and, you know, it's so funny to think back on that time period when it was all about being cutting edge and everything. It's like, oh, fuck the past and everything. And now it's, you know, fuck the dinosaurs. I watched King of the Ring 93 where Shawn Michaels made a joke about Hulk Hogan being a dinosaur, and he made like a Jurassic Park joke. And it's so funny to, you know, see that eventually grow and develop into those guys that ultimately had that cutting-edge revolution becoming the dinosaurs.
Well, it was going to happen because, you know why? The space-time continuum. I mean, Christ, anybody, we can make jokes about guys being old, and guess what? In 20 years, we're going to be that age.
Agreed, but you know what? There's also, I agree with that, James. So that's where you've got to have the company and the people running it saying, okay, we've seen this before, where if you hold on too long to the past, it doesn't help things long term. We've got to start building up this young generation and make it really work. They don't do that. I mean, one of the biggest problems I think the wrestling as a whole faces in every company, WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, even just, you know, some small-time independent promotion is they want to go back to the past, but instead of taking good ideas that worked in the past and simple formulas and making them modern, they instead want to take those stars from the past and use them again.
Well, that's what a lot of companies do, and that's what we were saying, and that's what Patrick was saying. You know, WCW, even in the early 90s, was using a lot of guys that were older. And guys like Dick Slater they'd bring in, and they'd crush guys like Buff Bagwell, who was Marcus Bagwell at the time, and was a fresh young babyface. People seemed to like him. And every single time Buff started getting a push, they brought this old fart now murderer out, and he you know, got to crush Buff. And it's like they do this constantly. And WWE does it all the time now with the older guys. But it doesn't bother me as long as what they're doing actually involves a mid-card. You know, we talk about all these things, and now the problem is because they bring in all these old guys. Well, the problem really is, and TNA doesn't have this problem as much as WWE, because TNA actually has some sort of a distinguishable mid-card. I'd like to see them bring back the TV belt and use it effectively. After
I can't believe they didn't have G-Von drop the belt.
That was silly. I mean, I can't believe they didn't re-sign him.
James,
what's the status of Bubba?
He's signed 2 years.
Good, because he's freaking phenomenal. I mean,
they couldn't afford to lose that. And there's a guy who's from the past generation that has completely reinvented himself, and it's like, it was at a point where I'm like, TNA can't afford to lose him.
Well, I got to tell you, that gives TNA a bargaining chip if they want Devon back, because I can't honestly believe WWE would want him without Bubba.
Well, Hogan has been like on Twitter recently, and he keeps saying stuff like no, brothers, D-Bomb's too valuable to lose. I'm on this now. So I don't know if that's just Hulk blowing smoke, or if they actually could still be talking to him.
Well, I mean,
Well, you know what? Matt Morgan was supposed to leave the company, and apparently he's showing up at house shows now doing run-ins and jumping into the crowd.
Please let him go.
Hire its entire security staff. First, that Aces and Eights keeps showing up, then Joey Ryan, now Matt Morgan. They really need to revamp security.
They really do.
By the way, one of those security guys that's at all the shows looks like Don West.
Yeah, that's that guy from Atlas Security, which if you go back and watch some of the old ECW stuff, you'll see him back then too.
Right. I was at a house show in 2008, and he was there, and I thought it was Don. I was like, oh, cool, Don West is here? And they're like, no, I'm not Don West. I'm like, oh okay.
I'm sure you made his day with that. He probably still regrets that to this day.
Well, I mean, once he opens his mouth, I know it's not him.
Well, because he doesn't talk like a psychotic guy with Asperger's?
I like Don West, though. It's like Don West, and we'll actually tie this into the commentary on Raw this week, which I do want to talk about that. But Don West, for all his limitations, he knew how to really make things sound exciting. So I always kind of enjoyed him, even though he clearly was.
My favorite was the last pay-per-view of 2002. He was standing on the table, red-faced, screaming at the ring, "Let's go, Red! Let's go, Red!" It was like the most asinine thing to see a supposedly impartial announcer doing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll say this. Don, he always sounded legitimately excited to be doing his job. I can't always say that about other announcers.
Right. Well, and again, we do want to extend our best wishes to Jerry Lawler. It's great to hear that he's gone home and that he's doing okay. He's doing better. He's actually going to have an interview on Raw next week to give us an update. That's all great. That said, the commentary, and I didn't see Night of Champions, so I don't know what JBL was like at Night of Champions, but the commentary on Raw this week was so much better. It was just night and day having JBL and JR at the booth, because you got JR to make things sound important, and you got JBL, who was legitimately funny, and had great line after great line after great line, to the point that I was like, yeah, he won with temerity. Which I thought was a very clever line, and I really like that one. But he's like, what did he say about the Funkasaurus? He looks like a sea monster that's been trained by Justin Bieber. It's fucking great.
I loved when during the Santino, I think it was Dolph Ziggler match, Cole says to JBL, "Hey, JBL, what do you think about the Cobra?" And I honestly am convinced Vince told Cole to say that to see how much he could piss JBL off. Because his reaction just was like, wait a minute, we got the Money in the Bank winner, a former world heavyweight champion, one of the best young talents in wrestling today, the future of the WWE, Dolph Ziggler, and you want to talk to me about the stupid Cobra.
By the way,
again, that's why JBL works as a commentator, because he knows how to... JBL comes from wrestling, and, say what you will about him, and, I remember when he was the champion, and people were split. James and I supported him, other people did not. But the dude comes from wrestling, and he knows how to sell things as being important and how to make guys sound bigger than maybe they really are. Dolph is the guy that we've, great talent. He's one of my favorite people to watch wrestle, but he hasn't been booked all that well. But JBL is like, all right, well, if they're not going to book him that well, at least I'm going to make him sound good.
Right, and he did.
If nothing else.
And you know what? He's another one of the global guys. People don't seem to remember this. He references it a lot. He didn't last night, but when he used to do commentary a few years ago, he references having wrestled at the Sportatorium in Dallas. And I think he does that in the reference of World Class, because that's where World Class also happened to run. But he worked for Global. That was his Sportatorium experience. And, he uses things like that to his advantage to say, look, I didn't just work here. I worked other places, and I know how things work. I give him credit. He also is putting over accomplishments of other guys in other territories, mostly Japan, but other places. He's actually complimenting them on what they did, like Tenzai. he actually commented on the fact that he was a huge star and World Tag Team Champion in Japan. And, Lawler would never have done that, and Cole was never going to do that.
You mentioned Sin Cars.
Going back to Dolph Ziggler, JBL referenced his college wrestling career. And I never knew that Ziggler was a college wrestler. Never knew that about him, but JBL made the...
I'll let Nick get his point out, and then I want to throw one comment in because I think it sums it all up with JBL as an announcer. But go ahead, Nick.
I like JBL, but why not just use Matt Stryker, who already works for the company full-time?
That's exactly right. I mean, that's the same compliments we gave Matt Stryker. He referenced other companies and other accomplishments that the guys had outside of WWE. That's why we liked him as an announcer.
He was an encyclopedia.
Yeah, and the main reason why JBL works, and this is key, he's a bad guy who cheers for other bad guys. It's simple one-on-one wrestling logic. Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. Gorilla was for the good guy. Bobby Heenan was for the bad guy. Simple, priceless, arguably the best announced team of all time. Lawler hasn't played the heel character in, 15 years now?
A long time.
Yeah, so
I would say about 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Cole's been trying to do a little bit of the heel announcer thing, but nobody really buys that.
Because he was not a wrestler, and he wasn't a manager. It just seems weird for an announcer to suddenly snap and turn heel. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. But if you take a guy that was a heel, whether it be as a wrestler or a manager, and you put him at the booth, it's a natural fit. Jesse Ventura was another one.
Exactly. Well, Jesse was a great one, yeah. Jesse also worked with Gorilla mostly, and McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it worked, and that's the simple basis of it. He's got credibility because he was a wrestler, and arguably was more successful than Jesse in the ring because Jesse never was world champion.
Well, truth be told, Jesse's wrestling career wasn't that great.
No, he wasn't that great. He was a look.
Mm-hmm.
All about the look. But and the promo. But once the match started, it was over. It was like, eh. That said, Patrick, since you're watching old Nitros, and I put this match over before, so Nick will probably yell at me for saying it again. If you're watching old Nitros, August 23, 1999. It was also the episode.
I haven't watched anything from '99. I refuse. That was the year I stopped watching, so I'm probably not going to look at any of those. But what match are you talking about?
Go ahead and look it up because it involves two guys that are still active, and you might like it. There was a match that was the main event of the Nitro from August 23, 1999. Also happens to be the same night that Kiss performed. It was Hogan versus Sting in the match that should have been.
Okay.
Every match
they had should have been the Starrcade match?
It was awesome. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the match was freaking great. They went probably about 20, 25 minutes, which for them was twice as long as any other match I've seen them have. And they were knocking each other around, and they were doing signature spots, and they had the crowd eating out of their hands. It was the match that should have been.
I remember their match at Super Brawl 2 months after Starrcade being...
That was better than the Starrcade one. Yeah.
It was way better than the Starrcade match, and it had the ending that you probably should have gotten at Starrcade, too. And they did, cool things in that match, I think Sting did the Scorpion Death Drop, but Hogan kicked the referee on the way down. So I thought that was a great spot.
They did, and they should have done creative spots like that for the Starrcade match. But this match, unfortunately, does have a schmoz finish. I'll ruin that for you. But it is my favorite Hogan-Sting match. I mean, it was just great. And it's largely forgotten because it was at the time when WCW was clearly on the downslide.
Right.
And it was overshadowed.
Well, also it's because no one was watching because everyone got driven off by the washed-up rock band lip syncing.
They don't lip sync.
Kiss did not lip sync actually, but but yeah, there was a lot of guys who lip synced. I think Megadeth even lip synced, which is uncharacteristic for Psycho Mustaine to do that. By the way, let me publicly say this, and this is a little bit off of wrestling, but while I might agree with Dave Mustaine's politics, he should probably just shut up because he makes us all sound stupid. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
he was in Singapore, and he said stuff about, I don't know if Obama gets reelected, I don't know where I'm going to live, because he's a Nazi dictator and stuff like that. It's like, well, I hate Obama. Let's chill out on this whole Nazi thing.
That's, and we'll get back to wrestling in a second, but I mean, the term Nazi has become like a really hyperbolic in a sense. There's another word. That's a word that Damian Sandow should break out on Raw next week. Which, by the way, Damian Sandow giving us a vocab lesson, I totally appreciate that. I mean, he didn't use like super big words like they said he did, which led to one of JBL's better lines of the night. But it's like, I love how they're like, I'm going to try and teach you things, and because I'm smart, that makes me a heel. And it's like, oh, yeah.
It's the genius.
Okay.
Is
that what they're going for?
Well, I don't know.
Lenny Poffo, you know what? Lenny Poffo's poems were fantastic, by the way. Go back and listen to some of those. Those poems are great. But, I don't know. I felt like Lenny Poffo was more of an asshole, and Damian Sandow kind of has a point where it's like, look, it doesn't kill you to learn some vocab words. He's like, I actually appreciate stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, he pushed the ambiguously gay button too, Lanny, with the genius thing.
What were we going to say, Nick?
Well, it's how it comes off in presenting. Someone who does vocab words and does it very kindly is not a bad person, but because Sandow's so arrogant about the way that he does it, that makes him a bad guy.
Yeah. I don't know, I just kind of feel like he has a point. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I just side with the bad guys. Well, like, CM Punk, I totally side with him. I don't care.
Oh, yeah. Which, by the way, so apparently John Cena has arm surgery, which they had to know about, and he's still allowed to pin the champion, and he'll still be main eventing the pay-per-view.
Well, that's the stuff they do. I mean, they will go out of their way to protect John Cena, and this week on Raw, I'll let it go since they do want to set up John Cena as the number one contender again for Hell in a Cell, and they did that kind of fluky bullshit finish where the referee screwed up, which part of me thinks that they're doing that to reference the replacement referees in the NFL because they're terrible. But, it's like the things they do to protect John Cena, like this whole breast cancer thing. Now, I think, fighting breast cancer is a wonderful cause. I applaud the WWE for doing it. Although the cynical part of me thinks it's just a political move for Linda McMahon to do that. But, it's a great cause nonetheless. However, John Cena is the only one that wears pink. Dolph Ziggler's shirt has to go out the window because Cena's the only one that's allowed to wear the pink because he's the only one that's allowed to fight against breast cancer. And I just see stuff like that, and it's like, they will do anything to convince us that John Cena is Jesus.
Exactly, and I agree with you. It's great that they're trying to raise money to support breast cancer. I got no problem with that. But it's like every other time Cena gets linked to a charity. Oh, Cena does all this stuff for Make-A-Wish. Cena does all this stuff for the troops. Cena's against breast cancer. It's like, there are other people that do this stuff. If you want to do something like this breast cancer campaign, take a note from Major League Baseball or the NFL or do the same thing. Have almost all the wrestlers wear pink one way or another. Do like a special Pink Divas T-shirt as well as a special John Cena T-shirt. Or,
right.
In Major League Baseball, a lot of players play with a pink bat, I think, in either October or it might be one of the earlier months in the season, but they have an event with the Susan G. Komen Foundation, and a lot of the players have a pink bat in baseball. Football, a lot of the players have pink towels or pink gloves. Have everyone be involved, not just the guy you want to put as the number one.
And again, I'll reference Dolph Ziggler again. It hurts him because he has to, it takes money away from him because he's got to have a new T-shirt now because his is going out the window. He's like, well, that pink T-shirt needs to go because you can't wear pink because Cena's wearing pink. I'm like, well, fuck.
Also using that same logic, does that also mean wrestlers can't have black T-shirts or Sheamus can't wear green because Cena's shirt before this was green?
I don't know. It's fucking just insane. What they will do that to protect John Cena. And I hear all the fucking time, that one of the reasons Cena's on top is merchandise sales. and they just turn around and screwed somebody else on merchandise.
Right.
They just, it's like, well, we'll never know about Dolph, but you screwed him over. You took his shirt away, so great.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like, why can't he still have that shirt? I don't understand. It's like, so Cena's wearing the pink shirt and Dolph's wearing a pink shirt. What's the difference?
Right. Also, Cena's shirt is pink and black, so it's more of a Bret Hart. I mean, it's a black T-shirt with pink writing, and the hat's turned pink instead of green that the shirt that he was wearing beforehand. Ziggler's shirt was all pink, and it's not like people get too confused. I mean, using TNA for an example, I have a James Storm T-shirt that is black, and I have a Bobby Roode T-shirt that is black. I don't confuse the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just those things that just drive me nuts when it comes to, just protecting John Cena and making him out to be the Messiah. And they want us to think he's Jesus Christ, and that's, a lot of people can see through that bullshit.
They want to. At the rate they're going, I'm almost afraid that they're going to start doing other stories where Cena says that, where they imply child molestation and Cena steps in. Because that's how desperate they're getting to get this guy cheered. I mean, in his hometown on Sunday, it was a split crowd. And they apparently went in the audience and took anti-Cena signs out of the audience.
Which I hate that. That's horse crap. I mean, I can understand if there's bad language written on it. I remember back in '98 there was a show where the crowd, obviously everybody was, had signs that said "Hell yeah" and "Suck it" and everything. And one person, as a joke, they're holding up the letters "Suck it," and they flipped over the S and it said "Fuck it." And I'm like, I can understand that. I was like, all right, it's not the Attitude Era anymore. I understand that, but I should be able to walk into a show with a sign that says John Cena sucks. If I want to do that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I should be able to voice my opinion and say that Cena sucks. And by doing that, by taking the signs away, you're just encouraging people to boo him. Because people smell bullshit.
And you know what? Enough's enough. We have had this guy as the number one babyface since 2005. Even if he had been the most over and, perfect guy and all the stories have worked really well, he would be boring and stale now anyway. It is beyond past due to move on and try to find the next guy you're going to strap the rocket ship to and send to the moon.
Well, I know who that is. It's Sheamus. They've already picked him. It's Sheamus. Yeah.
No, I say this. I think they kind of blew it with him.
Yeah, well, I mean, they basically turned Sheamus into Irish Cena.
Yeah, which, by the way, last night when they did this whole segment with him and he and Cena where they were together, about Team Up, my main thought was, I really missed the days where Sheamus was the guy that was trying to kill Cena and was actually getting some success against him.
Yeah, well, again, it's that whole thing with babyfaces, and this is why Randy Orton has a sizable fan base in the crowds. He's the only babyface of the modern era. I mean, because you got guys like Rey Mysterio, and you got guys like Kane, and you got guys like Triple H and The Undertaker, who are all products of another era and another company, in Rey's case. They can say what they want, but Rey's a product from other places besides WWE. But those guys are a product of another era. Orton is the only modern-day star in the WWE right now that's a babyface that isn't cookie cutter. And I'm not saying every babyface has to be a badass or a psychotic killer or anything. I'm just saying let them be themselves. And Orton is the only one that I feel like is being himself, while everybody else is just smiling away and just being silly because that's what they're told to do.
Well, go back and look at the 1980s, and it's a perfect example. You had Hulk Hogan doing his thing, the training, the vitamins, and the prayers. You had Tito Santana, and his style was different than Hogan's. You had, you had the Ultimate Warrior, he was out of his mind. You had Savage when he was a babyface. He wasn't he didn't do exactly what Hogan was doing. It was a very distinct character from Hulk Hogan. You had different styles of babyfaces, and it all worked. Even in the Attitude Era, Steve Austin as a babyface was different than The Rock as a babyface. Now it's pretty much like you said, everyone's just a copy of Cena.
Yeah, and that's a problem. But getting back to Night of Champions, I didn't actually see the show. I was at a football party watching the Sunday night game and the afternoon games as well, so I didn't see the pay-per-view at all. Reading over the results, though.
Sucked, by the way.
So what?
The game sucked. The Lions and the 49ers. That was kind of a letdown after a day of games. I almost blew a vocal cord, by the way, screaming at my television, and I'm not kidding. I think people think that, oh, he's joking. No, I literally almost blew a vocal cord at the end of the.
Well, after the game that your guys had, yeah. But congratulations, by the way, on the Cardinals. That was a really big win. But
it was a big win.
Yeah, I think the 49ers are just that. I think the 49ers are just that good, and that's what happened there.
Absolutely.
Well, then you guys get to fluff your egos. I'm just going to say this. On Thursday of last week, John Madden said that Robert Griffin III was the best player in the NFL. So going off of that logic, Sam Bradford is now the best player in the NFL.
Now, I think Josh Morgan is the worst player in the NFL. And this is coming from a guy who lives in the D.C. area. They're honestly I fear for Josh Morgan's life. Somebody might try to murder him.
Well, anyway, getting back to the wrestling show, Night of Champions, just honestly the best match on the card to me was Antonio Cesaro versus Zack Ryder, and that's because I like both guys, and they were actually given a little bit of time to show off what they can do in the ring. They didn't do a whole lot. They did nothing to build it up. It was just, oh, Zack won a battle royal. I really, really, really wish that they would actually continue that feud, but apparently they're already moving on. And, I mean, the rest of it was just kind of the same old standard WWE matches. I mean, the Intercontinental title match is a perfect example. The fans were behind Sin Cara. Rey Mysterio Jr. has no attraction to the fans right now, so people were cheering for Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, who's the guy they dropped the ball with in the Intercontinental title earlier this year. But reading over the results, I'm going to say the things that really bugged me. Just reading over the results. Dolph Ziggler loses again, even though Orton already beat him on TV, and we've talked about this. It makes no sense that Ziggler always loses. Actually, I missed the ending to the Santino match. Ziggler won that match, I hope, right?
Yeah, he won it.
I would hope so, but it's just...
See, the end of the match actually made it seem like Santino was kind of being shipped away a little bit because they kind of pissed on him a little bit.
Oh, but what worries me, though, is that means Santino and Ziggler are going to feud.
Well, I mean, he shoved the Cobra down his throat after the match like Ted DiBiase used to do with the $1 bill and stuff. And
that's awesome.
It was pretty much an ass-kicking from Ziggler. I mean, there was a couple of hope spots for Santino, but for the most part, Ziggler dominated the match.
That's pretty awesome, actually. I don't know if you told me that. But Ziggler, just for whatever reason, just never seems to win on pay-per-view. And I'm like, look, if you have to have two world titles, and you're having this guy go after the bullshit world title that, I think everybody on this line thinks should be shit-canned immediately, just, build him up with victory so that when he does win the belt, because he's going to win the belt with the Money in the Bank, I would think, because that's what they always do, at least make us believe in him first, but they never do that, and they're doing it again with Dolph. And Dolph's not even the worst one. Swagger was the worst.
Patrick, he's probably going to win the belt. Probably. That's what probably means.
Yeah? What did I say?
No, that was another JBLism. He said he'll probably be world champion soon, and Cole went off on him. Oh, well, everybody except one. He said, isn't that what probably means?
I missed that one. That's pretty good. Wow, that's good.
Yeah. Well,
again, going back to the commentary, and I'll ask Nick in a second, but it just feels like JBL and JR were allowed to kind of do their own thing, and that really helped as well. But how did JBL sound at the booth at the pay-per-view?
I mean, I definitely thought it was a breath of fresh air. Seemed like there were some little stumbles early on, but that's to be expected since he hasn't been doing it in a while. But, I mean, it wasn't anything where it was like, oh, my God, I can't believe he said that. It was like, something that just got brushed over quickly. I mean, no, he was great. I mean, I honestly wouldn't mind if he became the permanent replacement to Jerry Lawler.
which apparently he's not going to be. They're going to have another replacement sometime next week, which is a shame because I really enjoyed listening to him on Raw this week. But yeah, there was the Dolph Ziggler thing that ticked me off. Getting back to the results that ticked me off. Sheamus and Alberto Del Rio is still going, and I don't see the point in this feud going. Actually, somebody brought up a great point. It was like, the guys beneath Sheamus and Del Rio in the world title scene are Orton and Ziggler, and I think people would prefer them in the world title spot over these two. And I would agree. I like Sheamus' whole reign. I'm just sitting there thinking, all right, when's Ziggler going to cash in? Because I'm sick of this. And, I've said my piece about Alberto Del Rio being a boring character, but they ended the match in a way to where the feud's going to continue, what's the point? He's already beat Del Rio 3 times. Who cares?
Definitely. I mean, it's really unfortunate that they, have booked this, Sheamus' title reign for the most part to be so crappy. And sometimes you have a situation with two wrestlers, they just don't have it in the ring together. No matter how good they are, for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. And this is a definite case of it. And then the booking is absolutely horrible. I mean, they had this whole storyline, built around whether or not Sheamus could use the bro kick, and it got banned, and they had already made it clear that Sheamus had like 16 other finishers. And Patrick, you'll love this. There was that magic invisible camera at one point during the pay-per-view. Where there was a whole segment where Otunga, Del Rio, and Ricardo were backstage, and Ricardo wasn't wearing his neck brace, and Otunga goes, "Ricardo, you idiot. I have friends from Harvard Law School out there. If they see you without that neck brace on, they're going to know something's up. Put it on. So no one can find out that this isn't real."
I didn't hear that. Fuck that. I hate that. You know what? I get the feeling watching the show now that parts of it are written by different people and parts of it are written by Vince McMahon. And I can tell which part are Vince's. That sounds like a Vince scene. Hello? Hello? James, Nick? Did I lose both of them? Wow, that's really weird. But, until one of them gets back on the line, I'll continue to talk about my problems with Night of Champions. And here's what I'm going to say about the ending to John Cena versus CM Punk and why it bothered me, even though I did appreciate the next night on Raw was centered around kind of addressing that whole issue. And I think Nick just got by. Nick, is that you?
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. My call, I guess my phone keeps dropping me.
Okay. Well, I was just starting to talk about John Cena and CM Punk and the ending to that pay-per-view match. They're asking us to pay a lot of money for these pay-per-views. A lot. $45, I think, plus tax. That's a lot of money for a pay-per-view. If I'm paying that much money for a pay-per-view, I should get a definitive winner.
Right.
In the main event. I should. In the main event, the main match on the show, the one that, I mean, that was the main attraction. I talked about that. That was the best match on paper by far. I should get a definitive winner if you're asking me to pay that much money. And to end it in a draw kind of, to me, feels anticlimactic. And, yeah, they're going to have a rematch in Hell in a Cell. Yeah, okay, that's fine and good and dandy and everything. However, a bunch of people just pissed away $45 for nothing. And that's the problem, I think.
And if you're going to do a draw or you're going to do an iffy thing that's going to lead to the next match, do it in a way that's creative, in a way that's fun. And I think once we saw that the pin was off of a German suplex, everyone knew where it was going. It's like, oh, okay, both their shoulders were down. Yep.
Right. Well, we've seen that finish tons of times. However, where was I going with it? I said the same thing about the TNA main event that was last year. It was the December pay-per-view with AJ and Rude, where they ended in a draw. And I'm like, I don't like that at all, especially since the next week on Raw, on Impact, they just did the overtime finish anyway. And I was really bothered by that. I was like, look, I paid money for this pay-per-view. I should get a winner in an Iron Man match. It was just a weak sauce finish to me, and that can be problematic if you do a lot of them. And again, I understand the Hell in a Cell is going to remove that. I understand that. You're going to get a definitive winner in Hell in a Cell. But if that's what you were going to do, maybe you shouldn't have had this match at this pay-per-view. You already got, like, kind of the no contest match on Raw 1000 between these two.
Right.
To me, it just feels like you asked people to spend $45 for nothing because they didn't get a winner.
Yeah. And, you know, I think if they're going to do that, you know, there are other people, you know, give someone else a title shot to hold over till the next month. I know there was a lot of speculation of, well, it's Cena's hometown, so he should be getting the title shot. It's like, well, you know what, sometimes you got to play with people's expectations. Why not have there be a match where somebody costs Cena the title shot and he feuds with that guy and Punk gets a big victory over somebody else on the roster because, you know, let's be honest, he could use it. I mean, they have not booked Punk well in this title feud. I mean, the only thing, you know, in a long time that you've been excited about from Punk's title reign is he's now working with Paul Heyman.
Which is fantastic. I love having Paul Heyman on Raw. He's a fantastic performer and a great storyteller, actually. Like, the way he talks and the way he gets his points across are so much more professional than most other guys in the business. I mean, he's a master.
Right. Well, it kind of goes to what people used to say about J.J. Dillon, where with the Four Horsemen, you had guys that were great promo cutters. They didn't need a manager to speak for them, but J.J. was the perfect guy to have out there and represent them if they weren't there and could still get their point across. It's
right.
Definitely a case of...
Go ahead. Nick? Did we lose you again? Oh, wow. Well, I was just going to make the point that it reminds me a lot of Kurt Hennig and Bobby Heenan. Mr. Perfect, he never needed a mouthpiece, certainly. I mean, he was a great promo guy. But having Heenan in his corner added an extra dimension to his character and I think made him more well-rounded all around. And still waiting for Nick to call back in. But we're going to be wrapping up the show in a few minutes anyway. Excuse me, I'm choking on something. But, that's kind of, where were we going with this? But, yeah, the Ending United Champions just really, really bothered me in that aspect, that they would, especially since the match was apparently like half an hour long. You know, half an hour and you don't get a finish. That kind of sucks. And, again, I'm sure that what they have planned for Hell in a Cell will probably be fine. It's just disappointing in that aspect. And I probably would have preferred on this show if they'd just done Sheamus versus CM Punk for the two titles and unify the belts, but that's just me. Okay, I just got a message from Nick, and he's telling me that his phone died and he can't get back into service, so he is done for tonight. So I guess I'm done too. So thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm sorry for the awkward ending there, but technical difficulties are technical difficulties. For James Walsh and Nick Knoll, I am Patrick Kelly signing off, and hope you all have a good week.